This week, featuring on Youth Perspective, we have the Socially Awkward Podcast, a podcast created by homemade young people in Singapore, not only to expand the homemade community, but also share their talents and much, much more.
Alright, hi, I'm John. I'm the founder and producer of the Socially Awkward Podcast. So mostly I'm behind the camera, so episodes, videos, it's all under me.
My name is Rebecca. I do a little bit of hosting. I help to write the content, interview questions, come up with ideas, as well as a little bit of editing and a little bit of other stuff. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Emma. I am the host for the Socially Awkward Podcast, and on top of hosting, I also help with script writing.
Cool, awesome. I'm actually now curious. How did you guys come up with the name?
It was actually me who came up with it. Me and John were brainstorming ideas, and I was like, you know what? Let's take a stereotype about homeschoolers and kind of reclaim it and make it our own. And we were thinking, okay, what are stereotypes of homeschoolers? Oh, okay, we don't know how to socialize because we're just by ourselves at home all the time. What about socially awkward? And then John was like, yeah, why not? And then we rolled with it. And now Socially Awkward Podcast is us.
I won't lie to you, it's a very catchy name. So tell me, how did this all start? Like, where did the idea come from?
So the idea came in 2019, actually. It was the end of 2019. And I was just thinking about how whenever I met someone new, we would talk about ourselves, say like, oh, this is me, I'm how old, this is stuff I like to do. And then you always reach the inevitable question of which school did you go to? And whenever I encountered this, I'll be like, yeah, I'm homeschooled. And then there'll be the, oh, so what's homeschooling? How do you make friends? Blah, blah, blah. As homeschoolers, we're very used to these kind of questions. Over the years, I've explained to people, I came up with like a script of the stuff that I would say to people whenever they ask me these kind of questions. But now at that time I was thinking, what if there was something that we could point people to? And it's not just my experience, it's not going to be my experience, because I know that's not where my skill lies. My skill is not in front of the camera talking. But what if it could be a platform for homeschoolers to share their experience? It'd be like a collection of homeschool experiences. And so that's really where the idea for the podcast came from. It's about sharing homeschool experiences. Not as just like, it can be like for archive purposes as well, but mainly is to encourage people and also to let people know that, hey, there's someone out there who does what I enjoy, something that I like as well. I want to get connected with them. Hopefully through that we can help to build the community.
So I think for me, it was really because I had lived overseas for a little bit. I realized that when you move, it can be a very isolating experience because you're either by yourself or with your family in a new country and you're trying to integrate into a new culture. And one thing that me and the team, I suppose, have noticed over the years is that even when you go to different schools, there is a different culture that is often attached to it, whether it's the language that you use, the way that you dress. And we realized, okay, so what is homeschool culture about? And for people who homeschool because either they're missionary kids or third culture kids, both of which we have talked about in the podcast. I can't remember which episodes, but yes. We wanted people to feel like, hey, okay, we're not the only people out there who have been through this, and we are not alone in our experience, or rather, we're not the only people who have faced similar circumstances. Obviously, everybody's experience is going to be different, but yeah, we're not alone in our circumstance in a sense. And I think that was really what it was about for me, making people feel heard and known.
For me, the podcast has helped in terms of reconnecting back to the homeschool community, because I realized that as you get older, when you're past, 12, you start your high school syllabus, and everyone does different high school syllabus and is in a different community. And when your entire time is just dedicated to studying, it's very hard to connect with people that are not in your friend groups. And the podcast has really helped in a sense to bring people together, or to be that thing in the homeschool community that people can say, hey, this is what some of the homeschool teens are doing, and if you're interested in any sorts of media or creating anything, you can just contact us, or for us to get to know our guests and network more, because the homeschool community is fairly, I won't say large, it's a sizable amount, but because some people just like fall off the radar, so you don't really know who is in the community. So it's an interesting platform for us to get to know more people and to build the community, not only just like in person, but also online.
Yeah, and I think also like part of it is because homeschooling with your schedule you can be so flexible. That's why we can do things like the podcast. A lot of people have very different experiences. So we've had people come on and talk about their experiences with, for example, we had another episode where we talked to this guy who was on the national youth gymnastics team, and I think a lot of people do stop school. I have a couple of other friends who have stopped school to homeschool because of their sports. So I think knowing that there are other people out there who are like them is something that we would like to bring light to, and that homeschooling in a sense enables.
But how did you guys all meet?
Yeah,
Well,
so
I mean, we're siblings,
Rebecca's my
so
sister.
there's nothing much to say for that.
Yeah.
But how I met Emma, I first knew her as John's friend. It's kind of funny because we all met at a public speaking conference, and I only got to know her better when she joined sport.
So how I got to know Emma was when I was around 13. I had this project that I needed to do. I wanted to make this stop motion animation with Lego project. What I needed was Lego minifigure animals. Emma's mom was like, yeah, Emma has
Some horses.
yeah, she's got some Lego animals. At the time, it was just like, oh, I know Emma as she has Lego animals, but we never talked. So that's kind of like our friendship journey over the past 7 years. 7 years, it's crazy.
So long. I can't believe it's been so long. But yeah,
Right.
basically I met them both at conferences at different times. I remember Rebecca. My first impression with her was she was really sweet because I had left a scarf behind in one of the rooms. And even though the conference had ended, she held on to it for me until like 6 months later or something. We reconnected at another conference, and then the next day she brought my scarf for me, and she'd been holding on to it the whole time. And I was like,
It's funny because I don't remember that.
I have to admit, in all my time of being a home ed person, I've never heard this concept before. I've heard people complain about all the questions you usually get asked and be like, every time I tell people I'm home educated, it's, do you spend all day on your iPad? All these questions I have made, but no one's ever come up with a solution. It's quite interesting listening to you guys talk. I want to ask, have you guys all been home educated for all your life, or have some of you gone to school, or?
Yeah, so I started homeschooling ever since I was young, and you could say that I've been homeschooled my entire life. I only went to public school for about half a year, so I think it was a good experience just to get to know what public school was like, and it helped me to value what I had in homeschooling: the flexibility, the ability to pursue my passions, and to have the time for it.
Yeah, and I've been homeschooled my entire life. But I've been to a school for non-school reasons.
so I did primary one, so that would be first grade in a public school, and it was just not for me. I'm dyslexic, and at the time they had programs in place. It's just that the programming was not consistent, and I couldn't keep up with school. So I did meet some fantastic teachers though, and I think I learned a lot more socially than I did academically. But really, to each his own. I know some people who go into homeschooling and they're like, I learned more academically in a sense while in public school, just because the syllabus might be more suited to them or the curriculum might be more suited to them. So not to say one is better than the other, it's just really what works for you. And for me, I found that homeschooling works better.
How do you guys balance running the podcast with your work and school?
So for me, I currently hold a full-time job I'm working as a production intern at this media company. So weekdays in the daytime, I'll be working, and then evenings is socialization or podcastings, and then weekends is podcasts and projects. I'm also not sure how I do it. Still struggling a little bit to find a correct balance. I don't have it perfectly figured out, but we're slowly getting there.
For me, I do a couple classes, not too much, like 3, and other projects. So the Socially Awkward podcast is currently like my biggest project. So it really depends how much time I spend on it. You know how projects are, right? There are some times where it's like less busy period, and then there's some stuff where it's like you have to go full steam. So in terms of my scheduling, it's pretty flexible. On the weeks where we have to record, it's generally more busy. Yeah.
Work-life balance. We're all really bad at work-life balance. I'm not sure if it's also a cultural thing, but rest in Singapore is definitely not unheard of, but it is something that you will find is a recurring struggle among students and adults as well. So same for us. It's just really having to develop our own rest cultures. Yeah, that's the nice thing about homeschooling. It's pretty flexible in terms of timing. So I can just block out a day to record the podcast or do whatever podcast things it is that I need to, or I can stay up really late and then wake up really late in the morning. I shouldn't, but I do. And I guess that's how you balance it. Interestingly enough, I think for me at least, I've had to schedule in rest time rather than just randomly have it come to me.
What's it like working in a team?
So we started from a place of just being friends first. And then because we're friends, I like to think that taking care of each other kind of comes because you are friends. But after you start working on projects together, I think we had a little bit of a weird phase where we were just work friends and we weren't really friend friends. And then we had to learn, okay, how do we hang out together? How do we just have fun without talking about work? And that is something that I feel like most people only learn about later on in life. And while in a sense, John is still the boss, main overseer, supreme overlord, there isn't really a sense of I'm looking down on you because I'm the boss. I think because we started as friends, we're not afraid to put him in his place and be like, John, that's a terrible idea. And we have done that before. Whether or not he chooses to listen is honestly his final call. But we can be like, told you so. And in a sense, having that right to say, I told you so, but okay, let's move on. How can we grow from this? And how can we communicate better in the future is something that is really important to us. And learning how to communicate with one another, whether it's I'm the most scatterbrained person ever. So Rebecca is very good at following up with me, making sure that I get things to her on time, and in a sense, just checking in on each other's mental health as well, because we're also busy making sure that we're all getting enough rest. Yeah, all parts of learning to work in a team.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Emma said, I think when you are also friends and you're working on the project, it's very important to, I guess, learn how to be professional. I've had projects in the past where we would just goof around the entire team meeting, we would never get things done, which was fun, yes, but it didn't advance the work. And I think knowing that whatever is said during work time, or say maybe your, I don't know, idea wasn't included, to just know that, you know, everyone had a say in it. You know, we pitched in ideas, everyone's willing to listen, and then having like respect for each other's opinions and putting your stuff on the table and also critiquing it from place of love. And at the end of the day, you know, packing up, going home and knowing that it's fine to disagree and we can still be friends regardless. And yeah, to set aside important time to bond as a team, which we've been trying to do and has been very fun. And yeah, to just not talk about work stuff for a while. And when we have to talk about work stuff, we talk about work stuff.
Yeah, I really get what you say when you want to do something but you can't find people that are passionate about it. And I think for a long time that was what stopped me from wanting to do things with other people, because I always felt that other people are not gonna get how I see things, that I'm the only person who can do it. But then I realized that if I'm gonna do that, the things I'm gonna be able to do, yes, it may be up to how I like it, but I'm gonna burn out in the end. The result may not be exactly how I imagined it to be. And so it's gotta be a trade-off. The product is not gonna be exactly how I want it to be when I work with a team, but it's the quality of it's going to be so much better because it's a shared product. And so, as Emma mentioned, it's about putting people before the project and not letting our relationship be affected by what happens. Like, yeah, there are times when I suggest things and they're like, no, that's crap, man. Yeah, it's really, having a team is something that I really treasure, and I'm really glad to have the people that I'm working with. And I couldn't do any of the podcasts without them. I could try doing it by myself, but it's probably going to end up way worse.
And I think having the same goals really help. Like the fact that we all want to, I guess, give back and grow the homeschool community in Singapore has helped us regardless of, you know, our working styles, the way that we communicate, be it like extrovert, introvert. Like we can work on that, but because we have the same goal, we are passionate about that goal, about building up community, that it's okay if we are slightly different, because you're never going to meet someone that's exactly the same as you.
Yeah, we give constructive feedback first and then we roast after.
I think my final question for you guys is like, what is the aim of the podcast? Like, what do you want to achieve, and where do you see yourselves in, I don't know, 6 months, 2 years time?
What's our aim for the podcast? I think our two biggest aims would be creating a community within the homeschool community, and also being able to train young people to create media, because in this digital age, we're starting to see that you're going to need these skills whether you like it or not. If you don't learn, you're just going to get left behind. So I think what I want to do is I want to really empower a lot of young people in these skills so that they can continue to go on and just make a difference. It may not be big things, but maybe it's just little things. Maybe you want to help your church, or you want to get involved in something, and it's these little things that will help you. As for where I see the podcast in the next 6 months or 2 years, I think we're definitely within the next 6 months probably we'll have looking at expanding our team, getting more people on board to join us. I think it's going to be very exciting as well. And the next 2 years, really, I've not thought that far yet, but I think we just keep doing what we're doing. And what I can tell you is that 2 years down the road, we'll still be doing what we're doing, but the quality and the content of it's going to be so much better.
And to add on to what John said, with new people coming on board, not just teaching them like how to create media, but also how to create a good team environment, have good work ethic. And I think stressing the importance of internal communication to, avoid misunderstandings and making sure that everyone on the team is cared for, which is not something that is, I don't know, you would see often in workplaces. I think it's getting better. But yeah, like knowing how to communicate with people that you're working with, how to set deadlines, and how to, give yourself rest.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add, but I think one thing we noticed is that a lot of homeschoolers are really able to pursue their hobbies and passions, and we want to be a space that people can do that at. And yeah, so we're always looking to expand the team, whether it's people who want to host or write or learn how to use a camera or manage social media. And often these roles will overlap with each other. And so you get a chance to learn a little bit of everything. And just being able to give people that exposure, I think, is something that is really important. Because like John said, everything is so digital nowadays. Even if you don't plan on doing this as a career, it's helpful to know. Thank you so much for checking out this episode with Adele. If you like what we're doing, or if you're interested in finding out more, you can head over to Instagram at the.sociallyawkwardpodcast and follow us there, or you can follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Socially Awkward Podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor, just at The Socially Awkward Podcast. You can check out our links and Adele's down in the description box below.